Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Repackaging Revolution podcast. I'm your host, David Marinak. Now, before I introduce our guest, here's the title of today's show, aptly named The Packaging Revolution, how John Ewing and their Formula 707 has gone green and is saving big. Today's guest is a longtime friend, both professionally and personally. For 10 plus years, Kent has been GM and now president of John Ewing, a LaSalle, Colorado company famous for its Formula 707. Used extensively for animal health, but I know there's more. I believe there's a human division that he's expanding. Kent McKendry, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, David. I appreciate it.
You know, it's interesting. A lot of times I try to describe this podcast as two friends talking, but in this case, it really is two friends talking.
Right, man.
And it's kind of cool because you know, we're going into a holiday weekend, and it's like this is the best way for me to end my weekend, brother. So there you go. Props. All right. So what I want to, before we get into the meat and potatoes, I got to talk about Colorado Rockies. You have an extensive background in the baseball space. You're a former player, went to the University of Denver. Tell me about the Colorado Rockies experience, because this wasn't some intern thing. You were literally going down that road. So let's talk that. Let's go.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit of baseball.
Coming
out of my master's program at DU, I landed a job with the Rockies in Major League Operations Department. So you and I have talked about it a little bit. Kind of Moneyball type philosophy was taking over.
Was Dan O'Dowd still there?
Dan O'Dowd was there. Dan O'Dowd was actually the one who hired me. And
he's a Cleveland guy. His family's from Cleveland. Okay, just so you know. Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah.
And so they hired me in to do some analytics work to start. So I was doing a lot of statistical analysis.
Nice.
Kind of morphed into arbitration, free agent, trade analysis, contract structuring, just the big Moneyball thing. And we had a department.
Yeah, man.
That I joke that I must not have done a great job. We lost a lot of games while I was there. So there are a lot of brighter people than myself who can take on those analytics roles. But great experience. Learned a lot about baseball. Watched a lot of baseball while I was there.
Yeah.
A lot of bright people.
Now, is O'Dowd still there?
No. He.
Okay. I thought they did
MLB Network now.
Yeah.
It's actually Bill Schmidt, who's a longtime Colorado Rockies guy. That's the GM over there now, and hopefully they're turning some things around.
Well, were you involved at all with was it Ryan Feltner when he came in?
No,
remember that name? Okay,
no,
so Feltner was one of their starting pitchers. Now his brother, our son, played with him throughout. Their Cleveland people, and Feltner was always the older Feltner. Went to Ohio State. He was the stud, and the brother was the one everybody was hoping, because he had the size, he had the talent. And Kent State signed him, literally as a sophomore. They thought he was the next coming, and it just never panned out.
Never panned out.
Riley, good kid. He had every tool imaginable as far as being able to. I mean, his parents were sending him all over the place because his brother opened all those doors.
Yeah.
And they just never. And then he finally got to Kent State. It was his arm fell apart, and then they tried to rush him back. It's big time baseball. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, it's sad, but I mean, it's like, oh man, it's crazy. Now, how was Colorado doing?
Cleveland trade that you'll remember? It was the Ubaldo Jimenez trade.
100%.
Alex White, Drew Pomeranz. That was pretty early on when I was there. That was a big deal for us, because
that was a big deal all the way around. Awesome. And that guy was. It's interesting because a couple of times the Indians have gone all in on some of those types of trades, and that was one. Didn't pan out he pitched well for us, but then he ended up going to Baltimore, signed big money, and he really fizzled out there. I mean, good for him. I mean, whatever. But I just remember Pomeranz was a stud player that we gave up for that. And there's just it's interesting because the Dan O'Dowd and some of these other kind of guys that are still around, whether that's MLB Network or wherever they're at. But there was, several of these guys really started out here in Cleveland. Yeah. And again, that Moneyball thing, that guy, I don't know if you're familiar with the Moneyball, whoever that remember the movie.
Yeah.
He is now the director of statistics for the Cleveland Browns.
Oh, is he really?
They hired him to be somebody told him, or someone told the Browns, that he always wanted to do this same thing in football. And when the Haslams bought the team, I don't know, 6, 7 years ago, that was one of their first hires. And they literally, he doesn't even come in. He just does this from San Diego.
Wow.
And he literally just has got all of his things, and it's just talk about, it's crazy, man.
Bright guy, man.
Crazy.
Really
Oh, I
bright.
know. Oh, I know. Unbelievable. Well, let's dig in. I would love, before we even kind of talk, you were kind enough to, because there's a case study in this I want to go over, but tell us about John Ewing, Formula 707. Give us the background, how you got there, and really what it's all about. Because I want this to be a kind of a something that you can share with your folks too.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So John Ewing Company was one of the earliest players in the equine nutraceutical market. So the company started in 1946, and so been around 75 plus years. John Ewing, the namesake, started the company, passed it down to his son. We ended up buying it. My business partner and I bought it in 2014.
Nice.
And for all the longevity, it was still a pretty small company that didn't have much of an e-commerce presence, had great products, just not a lot of exposure, more of a regional brand. And so over the last 10 years, we've really tried to kind of revamp our structure, keep the same attention to the quality products, but really get those out in front of consumers in a meaningful way. And for us, that's been e-commerce. And so a lot of big presence on Amazon, Chewy, our own website, a big focus on digital presence, even versus brick and mortar. And so the brand has grown tremendously. We have a great following, a very loyal following of people who believe in the products that we produce. And we service a lot of high-end equine clientele in the market.
So equine in particular, and that's and one of the things I've learned through you is they're a unique bunch. And I say that respectfully. They are very, very loyal.
Yep.
And they, especially when it comes to their horses, whether it's a pet or in general, they know what they want. They know what the horse responds to. I mean, is that sort of, am I reading that right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think horse owners, this is something that I learned as I came into this company. I was not a horse owner myself.
Yeah.
But very passionate, willing to spend money on their animals to make sure that they're taken care of well. Very, very unique in that as a community, they understand the brands and the products that are effective and those that aren't.
Right.
Very niche category, but very interesting, very loyal group of people for sure.
Was that always the thought? I know you did a segue into the baseball. Was that always the thought to kind of be your own guy and to kind of get into, it's not for the faint of heart. Trust me, I know as well as you do. This kind of buyouts and things like that are, a difficult pill to swallow. Was that always the plan?
The plan was to be a general manager in Major League Baseball.
Boy.
That was the
plan.
Don't
give up the dream, brother. Don't give it up.
Man, I had the dream, and I think there was a path forward, and I was really fortunate to have some people who were willing to mentor me in that direction. But I realized pretty early on, especially with a new family, that I was more passionate about running something and building something, less passionate about just building a baseball team.
Yeah.
And so it made sense for me at that point to try my hand at running a business. And that kind of snowballed into, John Ewing Company and then human dietary supplements company. So it's been a good fit for me.
Well, let's focus a little bit more on the human dietary supplements. Is that a division of? Is that a standalone company different? Unless you don't want to go into that, I would love to kind of give you some pub on that, because tell us about that. And obviously, that's a segue or something from the John Ewing experience in the Formula 707, right? I mean, give us some background.
Yeah, absolutely. So, John Ewing Company, when we bought that in 2014, really what I got is a great primer and education into manufacturing, specifically supplement manufacturing.
Right.
Fast forward to 2021, what we were seeing, especially coming out of COVID, where the human dietary supplement industry really through COVID exploded.
Tell me
people
about
were
it.
very concerned about health. They're spending money on supplementation to keep themselves healthy.
Yeah.
And as e-commerce brands continued to pop up, evolve, grow, there really was a lack of manufacturing in this space that we identified. I was fortunate to be connected with a number of large human dietary supplement brands that were anxious to have product manufactured outside of where they were having it manufactured.
Really?
So that's really what spurred me to start the human dietary supplement division. It is a standalone company. It's called Centaur Nutraceuticals. Our product formats: gummies, capsules, tablets, powders. And really, it was just born out of seeing that there was not enough manufacturing in the space. And I think the benefit that I had is that John Ewing Company and the equine side really gave me a good education into how nutraceutical manufacturing is supposed to work. Granted, horse versus human, but there are a lot of similarities there between the animal and human dietary supplement segments.
And one of this, and I'm just guessing, but I think I'm right. I mean, there are people that, you know, if they'll spend extra money on their horses and pets, when they find a supplement that really helps them and something that really does make a difference at their doctor's appointments or energy wise or whatever, I got to believe that, you know, the cost is secondary. Yes, cost is always important, but when you've got that product, I mean, that stands by itself.
100%. Yeah, when you find something that works, I think price is definitely a consideration. But once you believe in a product that's working, people stand by that.
Is that a saturated market anymore? I mean, I know you said it was lacking at that time, but has it become saturated? And how do you make sure that you get that out? I mean, if I heard you correct, you're selling a lot of that through e-commerce and online and digital, which I'm fascinated by. But is that something that you feel is getting watered down, or do you feel there's still room to grow?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the equine supplement side, it really depends on category. I think there are certain categories in both equine and human that are pretty saturated. You know, joint health, as an example, is just a very big category, a big focus on that. A lot of companies have entered. I think generally speaking, there's still a lot of blue sky in the equine space. It's just a smaller market than human dietary supplements.
Right.
On the human side, we are exclusively contract manufacturing. So
good.
I still see a lot of upside potential as contract manufacturers in that space with all the brands that are popping up. I would say the same thing for the human space, though, as the equine. Certain categories, whether it be apple cider vinegar or melatonin, are very saturated. Other categories, you know, functional mushrooms, the nootropic segment in general, those are expanding categories where I think there's still a lot of blue sky there. And we see a lot of customers entering the space in those areas.
Are they coming to you, or maybe it's a mixture, because I'm fascinated with this. Are they coming to you with their recipe, so to speak, and saying, hey, this is what I've got for nutritional mushrooms, and I need somebody to blend it and mix it or whatever? Or is that something that you have that you're, tell us a little bit about that. That's pretty cool.
You bet. So it's a great question. We get a good combination of both. So I do have customers who will come and say, we have a product out in the market. Here's the recipe. Here's the formulation, all the specifications. We just need you to make it. And that's an easy way for us to do business. We also have a full-time product development group here that can assist with the formulation. And, you know, as it pertains to gummies, palatability and texture are so important. So we're actually doing the formulation on behalf of these brands and then helping them get from ideation all the way through commercialization with the product at scale.
Yeah, I just think that's really cool. Well, you know what, for what it's worth, that world is right up your alley, brother. I mean, this is very, very cool. And again, I knew it was coming, but the contract manufacturing side of things, to me, that's where you control your own destiny. You know, you can kind of decide and pick and choose. You're not chasing, you know, and again, just like in my world, where you've got people that are like, it's more of a mom and pop, and I don't know if it's going to work, and not quite sure how that's going to fly. But from the contract manufacturing, you also have that ability to look at something and go, you know what, this guy, crazy doctor or somewhere, may be onto something. Yeah. Maybe I will take a stab at doing this, and maybe I'll help assist him for an equity stake, maybe, or maybe we'll do something down the road. I think that's very cool. Good for you.
Absolutely. Being able to identify brands or concepts that you think you can scale with is part of what excites me. And you're right, there's a lot of opportunities that come around that are maybe not as attractive, but
we call those wankers, Ken. Sorry, I'm just going to say that out there. It is what it is. I mean, and respectfully, you know, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but I mean, it's just like, oh man, I get it. It could save the world. I get it. Right. It's a chocolate sauce that you pour into your coffee and it's going to save the world. I understand it's going to, dude. And it's tough, but I digress.
100%.
Sorry.
100%.
Yeah.
So that's a fun part for me. And you've done it with me on the John Ewing Company side. You were with us, 10 years ago, and it was a pretty small brand, and just being able to kind of scale together, and you help us scale, has been a big part of why we've been successful. So,
well, I appreciate that. And thank you. I do as well. And the thing that's cool for me, even on the contract manufacturing side, is there's still, and I try to inform any sales rep that works for us, is the fact that don't overlook the contract manufacturers in anything, whether that be for food or just, because oftentimes they are that main, that's that company that goes, hey, it's got to run on my equipment. So if we don't make sure that we take care of them, we're on the outside looking in. And it's one of those things that, especially when it comes to your formulations, if you will, with the right kind of material that actually, will seal or run properly, whatever. That's where a lot of these guys, and I'm seeing it now post-COVID in my world, there's a lot of packaging guys that are so desperate and so hungry, and they're cutting corners or they're overlooking, and everybody's in a hurry and like, no, slow down. Let's get some samples in their hands. Slow down. Oh no, but they're going to give us an order. What good does that do to take an order if you're going to fail miserably and never get that order? And then you're going to have to refund that money. So it's just like, slow down.
Slow down. Do it right. Right.
Well, one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on is you did something, and again, I'm not blowing smoke at you, but you did something that I have been trying to kind of distill and package. And if I could get others to follow your example, but let me kind of set the table here. One of the things several years ago when I was out at your factory and we were walking through, and you kind of were like saying, hey, we're tripping over these buckets, or can you help us get buckets and pails, or whatever they were, rigid. Because at that particular point, it wasn't, and I don't think you were thinking that yet, but you were like, hey, these things are silly expensive. We're beholden to the company that has them because you're buying them stock. And you're constantly at their, if they're out, well, you're out. And if you don't have it, and then you scramble. And that's kind of where this whole thing started, which is so, the one thing I've often seen in the packaging space is there are certain no-brainers out there when it comes to, and it's not the industry, it's having some foresight to go, all right, let's look big picture here. We're having a pain in the neck with these rigid containers. I don't care what size they are or whatever it is. And they're expensive. What else can we do to repackage those or replace those or whatever it may be? Now, the one thing I've seen in the U.S. over the years of being in this business is, and I don't know if it's equine or in general, but there's a lot of people that that's the way it's always been done. So it is what it is. We've got buckets. Have you ever thought of anything else? No, I haven't thought about it. That's the whole industry. No one's ever going to change. But you guys kind of had this forward thinking, and it's seriously, you looked at this and said, well, we don't buy millions of these. And that was my whole point from the very beginning. You don't have to.
Right.
And you can do this in smaller lots, or really look at this from a long term. And what you guys had done initially was, okay, well, can I replace a bucket with a bag or a pouch, and can I make it convenient? So, and can I make it where it is not going to be this colossal, pain that everybody, no, I'm not going to take that. There's 80 pounds in there. What was it that you guys, and again, initially it's always going to be cost. I get that, but you guys looked at this from an environmental play, which that to me is the brilliant piece. We live in a world right now where there's a lot of misinformation. People don't understand what's good or bad for the environment. There's a lot of hate on plastic one way or the other. And again, a lot of that's misfounded. What was it? What was the goal here for you? What it was, because you've got a win-win all the way around. You're saving money from the cost of rigid to flexible. You're saving from the environmental play. And we live in a world where that influences people's buying decisions. No,
right.
What was it that sort of like got that ball rolling?
Yeah, I would be lying if I didn't say it was cost was the first consideration. Through
Yep.
COVID, resin
Yep.
was going through the roof, really
Yep.
difficult to justify these uber expensive pails.
Yep.
But I think what I also noticed is as I went into barns and I was seeing where our product was placed, it was just empty bucket after empty bucket. These
No
buckets that
kidding.
are just going straight in the trash can. And
Yep.
there are people that are concerned about, the sustainability and the
Yep.
environmental aspect. And that
Yep.
was a consideration we made, is
Yep.
having something that you didn't have to feel as bad about throwing in the trash can once you're done with it. So that was a big
Yep.
thing. I think some of the other considerations for us, differentiation. The equine
Yeah.
segment, everything has been in buckets for decades. And so
Yep.
you go into a farm store and what you see is a sea of white buckets with hinged
Buckets.
lids. And there you have it.
Yeah,
Really
there it
difficult
is.
to differentiate.
Yeah.
And, we had tried some things. We had colored lids, for example, and that was a point
Yep.
of differentiation. And it became problematic because through supply chain issues, the
Yes.
colored lids were impossible to get, right?
100%. I deal with it all the time. Yep.
So, what we found with the bags is, we can have something that is less expensive, that's more sustainable,
Yep.
that we can cover in
Yep.
our marketing assets and really
Yep.
gain some real estate back from marketing.
Big time.
And it's going to merchandise in a way that's going to be set apart from other things that we see on the shelf.
Yep.
And so really there wasn't a big downside. I think what you said resonated with me, though, that we didn't want to jump into it and go, we're going to get to bags today. And so you were great about helping us walk through that process. We were selecting material that was going to be, it was going to hold up in a barn environment. It's not going to be eaten through by rodents.
Right.
We were selecting something that we thought would be the best presentation to our customer. And it took us a little bit of time, but I was really impressed by how things turned out. And I think it's a big advantage for us.
Well, I think it is too. And I would be remiss if we don't make sure that we talk about the same thing like you said. And I think it's really playing out this way as well in the human side. There's a sea of the way things have always been in that world too. Pill bottles, 2-pound protein powder. That's it. That's where it goes. And that's another thing. But let's go back. And the cool thing that you guys had done, and I think it's important for others to realize as well, is all too often in the packaging space is that we are used to thinking that you're going to have to buy millions and you're going to have to take on and saddle this thing. And that's the one thing that I think a lot of sales reps out there, in my opinion, miss the boat because look, we all want to sell Nestle's. That would be great. But if anybody really looked at selling Nestle's between the ins and outs and the payment terms and the upfront costs, a lot of times you can build a relationship, and I'm grateful for your kind words, but you can build a relationship going the other direction. Yep. Let's help somebody grow their business. Let's help them try something different. Let's help them get to another level. And then you've got a partnership versus, just a one-on-one transaction. Yeah. I mean, look, the Nestle's of the world or the big boys, you know what? They'll eat us up and spit us out because they can. And again, we're a rounding error, Kent. We're whatever. Yeah, all right, find somebody else. Right. But when there's an emerging brand that wants to grow, that wants to get to another level, and is looking at their packaging as something that's just not, they think of at the last minute, because I deal with that all the time. Oh my God, why isn't our product selling? Well, you threw it in a regular bag that's But you gotta, that's the one thing I think a lot of times there's gold here in helping customers grow from the smaller side of things. And packaging really could be that connector. Sadly, in my space, I don't mean to go off on a riff, but sadly in my space, when I first got into this business, there were buyers that actually were intelligent and they had their brains and they handled everything from freight and sourcing and the materials. But over the last 20, 25 years in my space, they've eliminated those buyers. They replaced them with a clerk, and the clerk does whatever the computer terminal tells him or her to do. And yes, I'm not knocking them, but that's a position that they're not really thinking very much. Right. They're just going like, well, the computer says to order, so I'm going to order. And and it's crazy, but other than a drastic problem, they're just going to keep ordering. It's just going to keep ordering over and over and over, regardless. And I see that in the equine space. I see that on the human side. That's the way. You're our preferred vendor. But okay, great. We'll take the order. But I mean, I'd love your take on the human side of things. Is that something that you feel packaging could be a differentiator as well? Kind of like what you saw with the equine side?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think you're seeing it a little bit. It used to be everything was a white Packer bottle with a white lid, and that was it. And you're really just constrained to what is the label differentiation that you've got. I think we're seeing more and more companies that are being creative with the type, the shape, the colors. In the gummy space specifically, you just see a lot of differentiation that way. Even the material of these containers is different. I think we're also seeing brands move toward more of a personalized, customized type offering that they can charge more, differentiate themselves a little bit from the commoditized, vitamins and supplements out there. And so they're looking for a differentiation, a different factor in the packaging that's going to set them apart with the consumer. So I'm seeing a lot of that right now. I'm still shocked by the number of people that are just white bottle, white bottle, white bottle. But I think there's opportunity there.
100%. And that's kind of where, and you nailed that for me too, because there is so much out there from a technology standpoint. And and I think it was a Wall Street Journal. Somebody posted something, and I'm going to do a quick video on this, that suddenly the QR code has become vogue again. And I believe that is, it's been, I can't tell you how many times we've tried to tell people to put a QR code or to work with a QR code, because everybody's got a smartphone and everybody can kind of, and so many people from the retail side of things, at least in my world, want to know, okay, why are we using this product? I mean, you even have it on your website right now, reduce waste. We're reducing waste and we're still, whatever that is, you've got a story to tell. And so many companies, just like you said, it's white bottle, white bottle, white bottle. The Me Too's of the world, they're going to get lost in the shuffle here. If somebody can, literally tell their story on the available real estate that you have, set a QR code, or nowadays I can even set up on the printed pouches that can trace it back to the materials and the resin that was used and how it was laminated. And there's all kinds of little things that you can do to this that literally give you that warm and fuzzy, if you will, not from a marketing standpoint, but where your product has come from. And the materials that are used, and so many companies just don't do that. And it's just, I'm just baffled by that. Overseas,
a lot of companies just aren't even thinking through ways that they could educate the consumer about it.
100%.
And, switching packaging is painful. In some ways, it really is painful. Being able to communicate the value that your new packaging is giving, I think, is critical. And some of those ideas go a long way in communicating that message.
Yeah, and somebody's going to kill it. The other thing that's really low-lying fruit too, especially when it comes, and regardless of the industry, but a lot of companies now are realizing, hey, we can sell the rigid container once and a bunch of refills with a flexible or some other substrate. And that's actually a very smart move too, because, let people keep your bucket one time and then be done with it. And we see that in subscription businesses online or whatever, but it's a smart move. And it's just something that's just like, geez, I don't know why we didn't think of that, but unbelievable, brother. Unbelievable. But so let me ask you a question. How has the response been? So when you guys converted over and you have your historically on the equine side of things, what was it? Did you have to do, and your sales team have to do a lot of soft shoe to get them to understand why you're doing this? Were they interested at all, or didn't it even matter? And that's okay too.
Yeah. You know what? I think the response overall has been very positive.
Good.
I think we paired the change in packaging with a rebrand of the line that, in my opinion, really freshened up our look, made us look a little bit more modern than we had. And so, we're getting the benefit of having a rebrand that people liked combined with a bag that people liked as well. I think people have been pleasantly surprised with the structure of our bag. We went with a flat bottom bag versus a gusseted bag. It inventories very well. It presents itself very well, and it holds up in a barn setting. And so the comments that we've gotten are very positive, that it's not just a, polypropylene bag that is going to get eaten. It's very it's dynamic in the way that it looks, and it's functional in the way that it presents. And I think that's been really good. So our salespeople haven't had an issue with it. Our manufacturing people haven't had an issue with it.
Good.
I think we took enough time to go through and plan with you that when they came in, we were just ready to go.
There's a lot of companies, and again, not blowing smoke, but there's a lot of companies like we've talked about who would just go from 0 to 100. And then you've got that bottleneck at the filler, or the bottleneck at the equipment guy going like, what the hell, I'm not. And there's a lot of stuff that can be done in advance. And you guys did a good job of that, because a lot of times you just got to get the buy-in. And if people understand that their opinion matters, and what do we have to do in order to run these bags effectively and efficiently versus the buckets? Is there a new pipe or a fill tube or something that you need or whatever that is? But in order to do that, then suddenly you get the buy-in from the other people going like, hey, this isn't a shock, this isn't a surprise, and they actually ask me for my opinion. I just see all too often companies that just, well, Sam, you're filling bags now. I don't want bags, and it doesn't work like that. And there's a way, and that's really where I wanted to capture this, because there is a way to do this effectively. You got the buy-in from other people. You walked before you ran. You tested some stuff. You asked other people, what do you think? Is this even possible? You embrace the flat bottom bag, which is, to me, just so perfect in this case because it squares up very well. It is so user-friendly to be able to get into, get out of. There's a lot more to this than people realize. And it really does separate you from the rest of the pack. Mm-hmm. I'm seeing it now. It's almost like I see it now in the liquid side, especially even in the non-food, the chemicals, the poison, the agricultural, because they're realizing, same thing like you did, that buckets and pails are a pain in the neck.
Yep.
If Barry runs out or Berlin Packaging doesn't have it because they shipped everything to Coca-Cola syrup or something, whatever it is, good luck. Sorry, We're going to be late, or we only sent you 1,000. I know you ordered 2,500, but you got 1,000. And, so, and these are the kind of things I'm just like, what are people, what? But that goes back to my point with Betty the clerk buyer. Yeah, that's the way it is. The old guys in the old days, heads would roll.
That's right, man.
They would be on I remember I went into the Hoover Company years ago because somebody had said, oh, you'll never get in there. And Hoover was about an hour from Cleveland, and it was still pumping out. It was #1 brand and vacuum cleaners, whatever. And I did what every newbie would do was, okay, so I'm going to call the buyer. Well, what do you sell? Corrugated boxes. Okay, so I go in and this guy, Wade Huthmacher, who's still alive to this, is like 6'6", like 270. What are you doing? What do you want? I buy direct from Georgia Pacific. What the hell are you going to do with me? And he ate me up and spit me out. But it's guys like Wade Huthmacher who would literally, I don't have buckets. I'm in my car. I'm coming to your house, Sam, because you're going to get me buckets. But not anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just so interesting how that's changed. But a lot of companies just don't realize that there are opportunities. You can find suppliers that do want to work with you. You can find suppliers that want to warehouse and inventory because they'd rather lock you in long-term so you're happy and comfortable,
right,
and not having to overnight or whatever it is. And oftentimes that's a conversation. Oftentimes, and that's the other thing back to the sales guys, guys, just slow down. Why are they looking? What are they? I know you got this big opportunity at Florida's Naturals and blah, blah, blah. That's great. Why are they looking? Well, I don't know. It's a quote. No. You got to find out why they're looking. Are they having problems with their current supplier? Are they getting gouged? Or maybe what I'm seeing, I don't know about you, but what I'm seeing right now in this world, and it's pathetic, customer service is like a lost art.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody hides behind the press 1 for this, press 2 for that. And I've got people that call me going, I've been trying to place an order with XYZ company. I can't even leave a message in the general voicemail.
Yep.
That's sad.
Yep.
And for somebody like you, somebody like me that wants to grow and pounce, that's kind of what I wave that flag out there with anybody who will listen. Guys, there's plenty of opportunity out here.
Yeah.
Plenty. If you separate yourself as somebody, what was it years ago? Amazon bought them. Was it Zappos or whatever, the shoes?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? And everybody, when Amazon bought them, I asked my wife, you ever heard of this company? Oh, absolutely. They have human beings. They answer the phone. She knows my name. She said, I see you by your record. You ordered black shoes, but whatever. It's being human.
Right.
What a concept. I mean, and again, I think it's so lacking, Do you see that in your world too?
For sure. So many, and I understand it from a certain perspective of, you're trying to digitize things. You're trying to streamline things, but I think the art of picking up a phone is lost. And so much can get done in a phone call that takes 10 emails and 15 correspondence with a digital agent of some type. And so that to me is really important. And I encourage our people, pick up the phone, pick up the phone, make a phone call, develop a relationship. And for me, that means a lot. And that's part of what we prioritize as we're sourcing things is where do we have a relationship? This is more than just transactional. It's pretty important for me.
Yeah. And I mean, again, I think it's just such a huge opportunity. And every time I'm out and about, I go past any, and I know you see this too, any industrial park, help wanted.
Yep.
I get that. You need a machine operator, but you might want to answer the phone or have somebody that answers the phone, or at least they can get back to you, or respond to it. But it's just crazy, dude. Crazy.
Painful.
Well, let's land the plane, brother. Thank you for this. I really am grateful. I mean, I had fun with this, and I could keep doing this. We can always talk Dan O'Dowd and baseball anytime we want. But man, this was good for me, and thank you. I'm grateful for the time and friendship and us kind of, this is cool. And you allowed me to kind of capture, because a lot of times, Kent, people are, and this is what's really strange too in my world. There's a lot of people that are afraid, because they're afraid whether competitors are going to find out that they switch from rigid to flexible, and suddenly, I don't know, man, it's become so weird. And the packaging space is no different. I mean, I interviewed a guy, and I know you'll appreciate this. He was the first of all the interviews I've done. He was the first guy. Guy runs a company in Wisconsin called Vocon. Never heard of him. We connected on LinkedIn. And the guy, kind of like you, he bought out an older company that had been around for a long time. They were in the space of flexible packaging. And you would think, like, okay, you're one of a million other players. He goes, no. He goes, I bought it because they made their own equipment for the specialized packaging. But long story short, he said, I knew I didn't want to be in the flexible packaging space, but I wanted to do something unique. And he said, we found out that our equipment seals film stronger than anything else, meaning it's almost impossible to burst our pouches.
Wow.
And that took him into the medical side of things. He goes, I don't want to sell flexible packaging. I'm selling commodity stuff. Here, they suddenly, over the last 5 or 10 years, have gotten into the packaging for medical liquids, IV bags, and this kind of stuff.
Wow.
And his whole point was, which I thought was fascinating, was he was very, very open about, we do this better than anybody else. Come and get us. We do this better than anybody else. And it wasn't bravado. It was like knowing what they're good at and not being, this isn't opening it up for competition or whatever. It was like, we know we're good. We know McKinsey or McKinnison and Cardinal Health. These guys all come to us because our stuff is indestructible.
Right.
And I just thought that was so refreshing for somebody that, like, I know we're good at this, and it wasn't cocky, but you know what? And I know we can charge a premium for it because our stuff doesn't fail. I don't know. I digress, but there's just a lot of people that miss out on those things.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, dude, this is great. So most important,
do it all the time,
man. I could do this all the time. So, what time the cookout on Monday? Should 2:00, 2:30? What do we?
There you go. You fly out this direction, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. All right, big boy. Hey, thanks for everything.